Everybody to the Hall of Fame banquet that is coming up, and we actually filmed this segment several days after the Hall of Fame banquet, brought to you exclusively by John G. Pennington, George Kell Motor Company. We thank you guys for stepping up to the board and helping us honor some great folks at the Hall of Fame banquet.
Well, the Newport High School Charitable Foundation, I'm the chairman of that, and it's a great deal that started 6 years ago, and it's remarkable. Almost $184,000 has been generated to give kids opportunities that they wouldn't otherwise have. Some of these kids around here don't have parents who have the financial wherewithal to send them on trips and go different things, but they get to go to camps, they get to go to schools, they go over to different things, historical things over in Tennessee and other things. And then we've even sent kids as far as California to compete in national competitions. It's a great thing. It's just another unique feature about Newport, Arkansas. You know, the little town just continues to do well, and our economy's strong and good, and people continue to give to things like the Charitable Foundation to help these young people see what's out there in the world, and that they need to act right, do right, be right, do well, and that way they can be a part of this world and enjoy their lives. You don't have to be snookered. You don't have to be downtrodden. You don't have to live in a cardboard box. There's opportunities out there. Just do right, study hard, do the right things, make the right choices, and the world's your oyster, man. And that's what we want to show them.
Absolutely. Well, there's no doubt. I think sometimes it gets lost in the shuffle that we're honoring folks at the Hall of Fame. Yes, we are doing that, but the purpose of all this is just like you say. It's a fundraising mechanism to give back, and no doubt we're giving back to these kids who are in they need what we give them.
Absolutely. And you look at the list of the award winners who've been put in the Hall of Fame, and there's doctors and lawyers and generals and admirals, and many of the list just goes on and on about what kids who graduated from Newport, Branch High, Newport High School, what they went on to do with the education they got here locally in Newport. And I've been fortunate to do a lot of travel in my life. We've talked about it a lot of times, but and I said at the banquet the other night, Newport, I believe, is the center of the universe. Absolutely. You can't go anywhere. I never could. And I've been about everywhere that somebody didn't know somebody from Newport, Arkansas.
That is right.
And that's the truth.
Yes, sir.
But it's a great thing, and it's a great honor for these people to be put into the Hall of Fame. Last week's 4 were great. We're already starting to look at resumes and suggestions on people who would like to see other people put in next year.
Right.
So
how does one go about doing that? What do you do to try, if you have somebody in mind that maybe we've forgotten about, or somebody that you feel is that should be honored in such a way? How do you do that? What do you do?
People can get a hold of me or Julie Allen or any of us on the board and just contact us and say, hey, I'd like to nominate David Black to be in the Charitable Foundation Hall of Fame, and here's the reason why.
Okay.
So that's just that simple. We've got a lot of people who have been nominated, and it's voted on by all of our board. Sure. And try to figure out which ones are the best. And now we're doing some that are people that have gone on, and we're doing it posthumously. The people are gone, but yes. But their legend continues, and their lives are still influential in the world. So if you got somebody you want to nominate, call me, and I'll put their name on the list, and we'll bat it around. And this time next year we'll come up with a list of the next Hall of Fame members.
Tell us about George Kell Motor Company, what's going on there. Boy, I know you guys are busy every time I'm down there. It just continues to grow.
Yeah, we've been very, very busy. And back to school is always a little slower than normal. June and July were record months for the company. And then when school starts, it kind of starts dying off. People are trying to buy clothes, and they're trying to get their kids off to college and all that. But we've had a great year. Everybody's on, when are you going to move into the new building? Well, it's going to be after the first of the year, because it takes a long time building. Yeah. Big deal.
The building, yeah.
Yeah, it takes a long time. But still have a great selection of 2014 trucks, SUVs. 15s are on the lots now. 15 trucks are coming in. I tell you, one of the exciting things is, they're going to bring back to Colorado and the Canyon.
I know that.
I've got one on order.
Oh, is it black?
No, it's gold. It's going to be it's bronze with a cocoa dune interior.
Oh,
being only 6'3". It's kind of hard for me to get stuff out of the back of my pickup truck.
Yes, sir.
So I love those little trucks. And the one that I had, though, was way overpowered. It had that big 5.3 engine, 410 gears, and it was just too much. But the new ones are coming out with a 3.6-liter V6. Going to get up in the high 20s in gas mileage, and they're going to be a miniature version of the new body style truck, the Canyon. So they're going to be sharp. Yeah, I've got one on order. Production starts on them the 29th of September.
Wow.
So it'll be, yeah, it's going to be, 6-7 weeks before it gets in here, but I'm looking forward to that. And if anybody wants to come in and order one, come on. This time next year, they're going to put a 4-cylinder turbo diesel in them.
Yes, sir.
So a lot of our farm friends, like those diesel trucks, they never turn them off.
That's
It's
right.
not something I need, but it's an interesting concept, and we're looking forward to getting back in that market segment. There's only one company doing it, and their truck's not very good.
Right.
And ours is going to be very
there
good.
It's going to be a good one. I've read a lot of reviews on it. Yeah, studied on it.
Busy back in the back. Goodness gracious. I'm telling you what, everybody, trying to get their kids' cars ready for going back to college, and people taking their final vacation days and things. It's just Cooper and Russell and Ronnie Cornwell. They've just been, well, you can't even talk to them.
They're go-getters. They're busy.
They're just 8 to 8, crippling crazy, man.
Yes,
They're just everywhere, and they bless their hearts. They're working hard.
It's a great program coming up. We've already been there. We've seen it all, and there's no doubt we honor some fine folks, and it was a great night to be a Newport, Arkansas graduate, no doubt about it.
Just another unique thing about Newport. Look at all the money that's generated every year for the high school graduates. Through all the Thelma McCartney, Alton and Thelma McCartney scholarships,
yes,
and all these companies around here who donate money for these kids to go to college. There's another reason Newport's just a great place. Main thing's the people. We appreciate you when you come to see us at George Kell Motors.
Hope you enjoy the show. John Pennington for George Kell Motors.
I want to welcome you all to the 6th Annual Alumni Banquet. And at this time, I would ask you to please stand for the posting of the colors and the national anthem.
Say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets made clear, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Forward, march. Left, left, right. Left, left.
Let us bow our heads and pray. Dear Heavenly Father, as we gather tonight, we are thankful for many things. We thank you for our community, the city of Newport. No matter where we might go, we will always call it home. We thank you for Newport High School, including the staff and administration. They continue to train us up and prepare us to go out into the world and lead special lives. And we especially thank you for the leaders that are being honored here tonight. They light the way so that those of us who follow them can walk in their footsteps. Lord, please bless everyone here in this room tonight, and thank you again for our special school and these special people. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Please continue eating if you're not done, Junior Baker. I want to thank the ROTC and Mallory Watson for what they've already done for our wonderful banquet tonight. This is our 6th annual banquet. And it's a special night. So many of you have been a part of this over the years, and maybe some of you have never been too far off from the Newport boundaries, but I was lucky enough in a former career to travel all over the world, and you'd always run into somebody that knew somebody from Newport, Arkansas. Newport's a special place. Let me have a round of applause on special place. In front of you, you will find an orange sheet that has some foundation updates on some of the monies that have been spent to do some things for some of our children who, if not for the foundation, would not have a chance to go see and do. Another special thing for Newport. When you think about the scholarships that are given every year from the companies here in Newport, like the McCartney Foundation and Medallion Scholarships and all those other things, just another special thing about Newport. And this banquet honors some of these graduates who have been in Newport, who have gone on to do great things. The world is a better place because of Newport, Arkansas, and some of its graduates. I want to recognize some of the former inductees in our Hall of Fame. Some of them in attendance tonight are Kanister Hodges, Dr. Patty Mullins, who's here on behalf of course, all of us know Mr. John Mullins, Sonny Burgess, Mr. John Miner, Dr. J.B. Jackson, Ivan Joe Miles. We want to thank, is Marshall Ray here? Is Marshall here? Marshall Ray, he's here for Rear Admiral Charles Ray, and also Regina and Robert Lake on behalf of Justin Brown. People from Newport, Arkansas have made an impact in the world, not only in our community, but all over the world. Hopefully we will continue to do that. One of the things that we've started doing in the last couple of years, is to think about a person who has been given an award, Excellence in Education. All of you who know me know that I never got any excellence in education. I told you about making straight C's one time, and my dad bought me a car. That's a true story. That's a true story. Excellence in education is given to a person who works at helping our community through our children who work harder, give more, do more, and help children excel at the Newport High School and to go on to be leaders in the community and the world. One of those people who has already received that award is a dear friend of mine, former Coach Kenny Black. And at this time, I'll ask Coach Kenny Black to come up and award the next person Excellence in Education.
Thank you, John. I appreciate that. I have the honor tonight to present a very special award. As Mr. Pennington just said, it is our Excellence in Education Award. This gentleman does not know he's receiving this, and I hope he's in the audience out here. We've been trying to sneak him back in some way. He is a current member of our Newport High School faculty. He is a 1970 graduate of Newport High School, where he was a member of the National Honor Society, the Greyhound football team, and numerous other activities. In his junior year, our Greyhound football team was undefeated with a 10-0 record, and he played a major role on that team. He followed that his senior year on the Greyhound football team with a 10-1 record and a state championship, and once again was the leaders on the field for that. Great combination, academics, National Honor Society, and great athlete. It's something that really I'm proud of when our kids on the football and all the athletic fields can also excel in the classroom. Very, very important. After graduation, he entered the West Point Military Academy and graduated in 1974, where he was commissioned as a second lieutenant. I want to tell you just a few of the things that he has done in his life. He has served in the 101st Air Assault Division in Fort Campbell, Kentucky. He served in the 24th Infantry Division at Fort Stewart, served in the 5th Infantry Division at Fort Polk, taught chemistry at West Point. Unbelievable. Taught system engineering at the Defense System Management College, served in the 38th Air Defense BDE in Korea, served as a fielding officer for the Army, worked with Combat Net Radio, After all that, he went back to college and earned a master's degree at Vanderbilt University in chemical engineering. He is also a graduate of both the Command and General Staff College and the Army War College. He retired in 1996 as a lieutenant colonel, and I use retired loosely because as soon as he got out of the military, he returned to Newport, Arkansas, and began to work with our JROTC program at Newport High School. Since 1996, every year his JROTC unit has either been designated an honor unit or an honor unit with distinction. His students have won over 100 trophies and awards at competition in drill and fitness. In the last 6 years, the air rifle team has been ranked in the top 3 in Arkansas with a state championship in 2013. More than 100 cadets in his program have enlisted in the armed forces. 4 of his cadets are academy graduates. His JROTC program numbers continue to grow each year despite school enrollment decreasing. As you can see, this gentleman has not only served our school and community, but our country as well. On a personal note, I will tell you this. I became the principal at Newport High School last year, and the first day in my office, this gentleman walked in and said, "Coach Black, whatever I can do, anything, whatever I can do to help, I'll help. Call me." And that's just the type of individual he is. He is a wonderful man and a great educator. And I've got to read one more thing to you before we present the award. Under his senior picture in our 1970 yearbook, as I was researching information on this gentleman, his quote for his senior picture was, "Thank God, I also am an American." So it is with great pride that I am able to present our Excellence in Education Award tonight to Lieutenant Colonel Ed Jones.
Awards, we're going to have the presenters come forward one at a time for our new inductees into the Hall of Fame. Here we go.
You know, I wouldn't be here if Dickie Nance, Jack's son, would have been here. Franchelle called me and wanted me to introduce Melanie, Jack's daughter. Jack was born and raised here in Newport. He's also, as you all know, was one of the original Pacers, which is now called the Legendary Pacers, but he went on to a big career in the music world. In other words, you folks probably here don't realize, because you don't keep up with the music world that much, how big he was in the music world, of which we're never in touch with. You know, he's in Vegas, California, New York, anywhere with all these different people. And he was at the top. And I'm honored to be here for his introduction tonight to introduce his daughter, Melanie Anderson. And Melanie is from New York City. So come on up, and I guess I'll give, what am I supposed to do? Let's give Melanie a big hand. She flew in all the way from, she was also a vocalist, but I saw Eddie Jones up here. What you folks don't remember, Eddie Jones used to be a musician.
Well, I start off by apologizing for my state of dress. I arrived at 1:55 to discover that my suitcase is still in Chicago. So I'm hoping that the black jeans, or the blue jeans and the black shirts, standard acceptable fare anywhere. Anyway, this recognition means a lot to my family. I know it would mean a lot to Dad if he were still around. My mom, Charlene, many of you know, she grew up here in Newport as well, and my brother Richard would have been here if he could have, but he, as it turns out, just got back from a trip to Scotland, so he wasn't able to get here. So I'm honored to be standing here accepting this distinction for my father. Dad was a musician, but he was an extraordinary person, and it's almost impossible to think about him without thinking about music. I think it was a defining element of his life way before I ever came to be. I think that we would have been good friends if I'd known him back then. We have a lot in common. He certainly had a very musical influence on my life and on my brother's life. Most musicians play a couple of instruments, focus their talents in a relatively narrow way. But Dad was one of those remarkable people who could play almost anything he picked up. So over the years, I saw him play trumpet, guitar, drums, bass, piano, you name it. Anything I saw him get near, he could play. And, his versatility as a musician opened a lot of doors, a lot of interesting doors in his life. But he started off as a local musician with local musicians like Sonny and Joe Lewis. And, he and Joe Lewis would drive up to Memphis and record at Sun Records. And my brother's convinced that there are still tapes there that say Jack and Joe. So if anybody ever gets up there, I'd like some confirmation on that. I'm just really, really grateful that Sonny could be here to do this. As many of you probably know, he still has a very active musical career, and he happened to be free tonight to fill in for my brother, so man, we're really glad for that. I know Dad would be particularly pleased to see someone who was so pivotal in his early career here to make this a special night for him. His songwriting collaboration with Conway Twitty probably brought him the greatest notoriety as a musician. I still hear It's Only Make Believe in the oddest places, taxi cabs, airplane or airline terminals. Most recently, I was at a winery in Warwick, New York, and the little live band that was playing there was doing a lot of Roy Orbison and this and that, and suddenly I heard, "People see us everywhere." And I'm like, oh my God, they're playing It's Only Make Believe at a winery in New York. So I actually have proof of that on my iPhone if anybody's interested. It seems like anybody my generation or older that I run into knows that song. And my daughter actually went to college in the UK, and her boyfriend, when his family found out that Dad had written that song, they enthusiastically started dragging out vinyl of Conway Twitty and, oh, look, there's his name. So she was like a celebrity to them. But those were the early days in his career, and as it turns out, he had kind of an uncanny knack for the business side of the industry as well. And after parting ways with Conway, Dad went to work for Dick Clark Productions. I was 8 years old then. I think we were living in Cincinnati, Ohio, but I remember going to see Dick Clark's Caravan of Stars. And Dad was the road manager, so we got to go backstage and meet all these cool people like Herman's Hermits and the Dave Clark Five, Freddie Cannon, Bobby V, Little Anthony and the Imperials, Tom Jones, and three guys from a band called the Checkmates, who later went on to be the brass section for the band Chicago. So Dad went on to work for the Monkees, Paul Revere and the Raiders, Three Dog Night, the Moody Blues, the Temptations, the Fifth Dimension, and of course the Jackson Five and Dionne Warwick, with whom he had a long and rewarding professional relationship toward the end of his career. He liked to tell the story about when he was on the Caravan of Stars, and they had a headliner who had taken to jumping off the stage into crowds of teenage girls, which is very common these days, and nobody raises an eye about it. But Dad said, "You got to stop this because I can't guarantee your safety, and you're pissing off the security guys." So the next night, the guy did it again, and Dad fired him. And I think the next day, Dick Clark called him and said, "So what happened?" And Dad explained, and Dick said, "Well, okay, I probably would have done the same thing, but now who are you going to promote as the headliner?" And Dad said, "Well, we got this guy. He's pretty good. I think he can carry it." That guy was Neil Diamond. So I guess he was right. So Dad worked as a manager, road manager, a concert promoter. He was a mentor to many aspiring musicians and industry insiders. And whenever I was with him in any professional context, it was very, very plain to me how much admiration and respect he had from the people that he worked with. But he never lost sight of his roots. He always felt that Newport was his home, and my brother and I were born here. He met and married my mom here. But Dad's career took us to Cincinnati, ultimately to Los Angeles, which is where I mostly grew up. And whenever, and it took him all over the world to like the most exotic places. But we would come back to Newport every summer, and we would visit my Mama Mary, who most of you know as Mary Nance or Mary Stites, and my Aunt Fran and my cousins, and this was like our home base every summer. And when Dad was with us, we always got a tour of Rimmel, and he showed us where Great-Grandma Nance's house used to be and that sort of thing. He lived with Mama Mary for a little while in the late 70s and remarried Vicki, and then ultimately settled in Nashville, which I think kind of gave him the best of both worlds. He was close to the music scene, but he was also close to Newport, and it meant a lot to him. I know it would mean so much to him to have this honor. So in his place, I say thank you. I know he would never have expected this, but this recognition would mean just so much to him. So thank you very much.
By the way, last time I was up here, I had a few suggestions. How come Steve Smith's not in this Newport Country Hall of Fame? You know, he's a professor at Harding College, which you can't be much better than that.
Sonny, I agree. I've always admired you, Steve. First, I want to congratulate everybody that's being inducted tonight. A great group and an honor to Newport. Thank y'all. Thomas Farrell Broadway. Farrell is the only thing I've known of him, his name. This guy came to us from Jonesboro when he was a sophomore. He thought he died and went to heaven. A new boy in town, all the girls smothered him. Not only feeding him grapes and bananas and rubbing his shoulders and shampooing his hair, this guy he really thought he was King Kong. He was one of the best football players that's been in Newport High School, one of the best ends I've ever seen. Farrell was a leader, certainly loved challenges. He was a winner. Now, I'll tell you about his leadership ability. When his classmates, I was, by the way, a year younger than Farrell, but he was the best watermelon thief ever to leave this school. Sonny, Mr. Jimmy Grubbs, didn't he have a watermelon patch? Well, Farrell led the whole group that was stealing. When the shooting started, he could outrun anybody with a watermelon under each arm. And he led us out. We were never in trouble. But Farrell Broadway was one of the toughest, best defensive end. Coach Keaty, he's the kind you love. Farrell was All-State 2 years when 11 people in the state playing both offense and defense was selected. 11 in the state, and he made it 2 years. He also, the girls told me they loved him, so he was president of the senior class. Now, one thing that I have always admired this guy is, we got to tell old stories, haven't we, football boys? We were playing Pocahontas. they had won the league championship state at that time the year before. We went to Pocahontas, and the score was 14-0 the first 4 minutes, Newport ahead. But it ended up 35-14 Pocahontas. And I remember that all of us boys got on the bus, and our coach, who was one of the finest people I've ever known, got on the bus and he said, "I want to thank one boy for not quitting Farrell Broadway." That summed him up. Farrell was a winner. He never quit. Now, he always liked the glory, just like everybody. He was so good, he'd just show out. But my buddy Spencer outdid him one night. Walnut Ridge on the 5-yard line, 4th down, Walnut Ridge had the kick. And Spencer was left tackle and Farrell was left end. Spencer looks over and said, "Farrell, the way that guy lines up, if you block him, I can block the punt." He wanted to block the punt, Spencer. Farrell said, no, you block him and I'll block the punt. Well, anyway, that happened, and Farrell goes in and blocks his punt, but the ball bounces right under Spencer's legs and he sits down on it. And he scored 6 points for Newport. But, Farrell, he'll thank you. This guy is one that, like I said, I've always respected. He was a good guy. Sissy Hurley, I called Sissy and said, "Sissy, tell me something bad about him." She said, "I can't. He was a good guy." He was a good guy. So I'm honored, and I want you to know there's so many other things that he did. Farrell, one thing, you always had trouble in English with Miss Irby. How did you learn to speak Arabic? There's something hidden about you that I didn't know. But I'm honored. A person that I've respected and thought of all my life, thought very highly of, Farrell Broadway, and Colonel Farrell Broadway is.
You're at your own peril when you ask John to introduce you. He was right about those watermelons. I'm not sure I was the leader, but I will tell you that I was a driver of a car and I backed in the car. And when the shotgun went off, I headed down to the main road at 35 miles an hour, and Harrison Bennett passed me, running. Before I say anything further, I want to recognize some people here. First of all, John, I try to come back every year here, and John and I have some barbecue or do some talking and so forth, and talk about respect. That's a fellow that I love him dearly, and thank you, John. I want to recognize my wife here, Gillette, and I want to recognize especially my cousin Patsy, because she's been after me 2 years to give her some material to present to this group. And rather lazy, I didn't do it. So she started talking to my wife, and that's how I end up here. They got together and did this. I lay awake at 3 o'clock in the morning. When you get as old as I am, you fellas out there, right, Sonny, you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and start wondering about things, right? Well, at our age, you really don't think about the future because there's less of that than there was at the past. So I said, what am I going to talk about? First of all, I'll say just a few words about myself. When I was out here on this golf course with Willie, you remember Willie here, John, driving our athletic bus? in high school, and I took up typing, and nobody took typing in those days, but I learned to type. Miss Irby and her Shakespeare, that did not help me in Arabic, John. But it's just a great feeling to be back and be here. But you know what I really remember as I lay there at 3 o'clock in the morning is not about Sam's store down on Front Street, not about the Goodyear store, but I remember people. I remember in the afternoons at football practice over there by that old cinder track, and we had a lineup of business people. They come out, you would have thought it was one of the professional football teams. They just line up a whole bunch. You know, Marvin was a young whippersnapper back in those days. I remember him standing there. And Judson Hout. Just a whole lot of people. Charlie Long. And those people. I can remember working for Charlie at Christmas, wrapping Christmas presents, if you can believe that, wrapping Christmas presents. But it was the people here, not only my classmates, it was the people in Newport that I remember. Not the buildings, not the bridge, and not those things. And I think as I went through my college days and went through my military career and traveled around the world, that those people there supporting me, encouraging me, and us and our students here is really what counted. And I've heard here tonight why the people of Newport love it so much. Is because I'm honored to be here with all of these good people, and the people being honored tonight and those who have honored in the past. Not only those, all of you here from Newport who are supporting education, which I have endeavored to do for the last 20 years. My wife is a retired teacher. I've volunteered for 20 years in school district and committees and with children and kids. And I can only say it's great to have all of you here to support education, because it really started right here at Newport High School. Thank you very much.
Excuse me. It's an honor for me to be here tonight. Excuse me, I've been hollering at those football players all day. The reason I'm here tonight is because Joe Dave and I are great friends. We're not only friends, we're brothers. We do everything together. We hunt, we fish. Our kids were raised together. Our wives are good friends. We eat a lot together at Joe David's house because Nora is an incredible cook, and she puts weight on the Brandon family. I know that. But we're excellent friends, and he's not only a friend of mine, he's a brother of mine, and I appreciate him asking me to be here tonight. Now about Joe David. Joe David graduated from Newport High School in 1973. He played football, basketball, baseball, and ran track. And in my eyes, Joe David is one of the best athletes to ever come out of Newport. And Joe David wasn't that big, but Joe David was fast and he could move. He was all-state and all-conference in football and baseball. He wore number 14. And I can remember when Joe David was a senior, I was still in elementary school, so there's a little age difference. I was in the 6th grade, matter of fact. I can remember them playing in War Memorial Stadium for the state championship and getting beat by Magnolia. What was the score of that game, you know? 21-13, a driving rainstorm, right? After graduating from Newport, Joe David went to Harding University on a football scholarship where he once again excelled in athletics. He was all AIC in football and baseball. And I know you saw this in the program. He still holds the record at Harding for the most yards rushing in a single game which is 287 yards against UAM. If I'm not mistaken, Herbert Lewis was playing for UAM at the time. After graduating from Harding, Joe David decided to switch to another profession, and he went to the University of Arkansas, where he enrolled in animal science classes. And in 1981, he entered graduate school at Louisiana State University at Baton Rouge, where there he graduated in 1983. Excuse me, I'm sorry. In 1984, he was accepted into veterinarian school at LSU, where he spent the next 4 years. He graduated in 1989 as a doctor of veterinarian medicine. And after graduation, he spent 1 year working as a veterinarian in Monticello, Arkansas. The following year, he came home and opened up the Newport practice. He opened up the Newport Animal Hospital, which is still open after 27 years, which is a long time. A few other achievements that Joe David has accomplished was in 2012, he was selected by his peers into the Harding University Athletic Hall of Fame, which is a great honor, and very few have received this honor. I was very lucky to be there at that time. Joe David also was, I don't remember what year this was, but Joe David was also elected to the Newport School Board, where he served and supported our school for 10 years. These are all great accomplishments, and we should all be proud. The Newportians should be proud of Joe David, and if you know him, he's always been a great athlete, and in my eyes today, he's still an athlete. Him and some of his buddies still ride bikes. They bought these real expensive bikes, and they get out on the road. He doesn't ride around the neighborhood. This guy rides 30, 40, 50 miles at a time, and he enters these road races where he rides 100 miles at a time. And the first time he rode it, he said after he got off the bike, he felt like his rear end was bleeding. But he's always doing some type of activity. He's either lifting weights, he's always doing P90, he's always doing something like that. I'm the fortunate one here tonight because I know him, and I know the real Joe David and what he represents and what he is today. And what he is I know for the past 16 years he's been leading a prison ministry, a Bible study at the Grimes McPherson prison out here in Newport. He does it every Tuesday at lunch. He also preaches at the unit one Sunday each month. And I know if you spend any time talking to Joe David, within 5 minutes he's going to be bringing something up spiritually, something about the Bible. That's just the way Joe David is. And I got a quick story to tell you. And Joe David, you don't know this. I've never told you this, but when Joe David was a senior, I was in the 6th grade. And I always wanted to be number 14. I'd always go watch football games, watch him play basketball, watch him play baseball. And he was my role model. You can ask my mother. I would cut his pictures out of the Newport Independent and put them on the wall. Also, I knew that he played pool at Keedy Sportsman's One Stop. Coach Keedy liked this, after school. So me and my buddies, I lived at 1017 Holden down by Holden Avenue Church of Christ. We would ride our bikes to Keedy Sportsman One Stop. We couldn't play pool because Mr. Keedy wouldn't let us because he called us topwaters. The only thing we had to do is sit there and watch, eat candy bars and drink Cokes. But we went down there to see Joe David. Joe David's always been my role model, and what's ironic about that is I would have never thought that we would become such good friends and such good brothers, and I appreciate that so much, Joe David. You mean a lot to me. In closing, and I think this sums up Joe David, the way that I know Joe David, and it comes out of a Bible verse. It's out of chapter 5 of Matthew on the Sermon on the Mount. And it says, "You are the salt of the earth, but if the salt loses its taste, how can it be made salty? It's no longer good for anything but to be thrown out and trampled on by men. You are the light of the world. A city sits upon a hill that cannot be hidden. No one lights a lamp and puts it under a basket, but rather on a lampstand, and gives it light for who are in the house. And in the same way, your light shines before men, so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father in heaven. And Joe David, I think you are the salt, and I think you are the light. And I thank God for knowing you and having you for a brother.
That sounded more like a eulogy than it did an introduction. And I thought he only had 5 minutes. I want to introduce the table too. I mean, I have a very special group here, which is my family, my brother Steve and his wife Jen, my brother Ronnie and his wife Lisa, my daughter and her husband, Hannah and Jared Lee, my wife Nora, my sister and brother-in-law Junior and Mary Baker over in the corner. And I'll allude to them several times in this. The third week of July, the Cardinals had just beaten the Pittsburgh Pirates. And Colton Wong, a rookie second baseman, had hit a walk-off home run in the 9th inning. And his comment after that in the media the next day was, he deflected the honor and he said, "Guys, that's not me." He said, "I reserve that for the big sticks, the big guys." You know, and I took that as, not false humility. That's how I felt, and really it was the truth. Julie called me the next day, and when she told me about this award, those were my thoughts exactly, because I really understood what he said, and that's how I truly feel. To explain that, or to allow you to understand it, I ought to give you an explanation. Several years ago, I got really interested in early American history. I was one of those slow learners, not slow learner. I wasn't interested in it in high school. I studied it to pass the test. But anyway, I got interested in it. And our founding fathers I really became enthralled with, the kind of people they were and what they did. And to me, and this is my own assessment, they were the kind of people that they had internal principles that weren't deterred by external pressures. And to me, their internal principles unquestionably was God, country, and family. And they literally gave their lives and everything to us. And that's why we have what we have. I read a lot of books, and then I got to reading some, and I got into the letters. And the letters were written to spouses and other people, and it was Old English literature, and about every 10th word I'd have to look up. And then I'd read it again. I'd forgotten what it meant, so I'd have to go look it up. So I quit reading them when I got to that point. But that kind of progressed to the war era, the Great War specifically, World War II. And I can't impress upon you what that has meant to me in understanding that and what these men went through. And so I started thinking, and matter of fact, I was reading South Pacific. And little did I know, Claude Burris, Joby's wife's daddy, I just got through reading it about how men were on Iwo Jima, and they were in crater holes, and they were stuck there. They'd be stuck there for up to 20 days, 21 days. I mean, water and mud and in the bottom of it, and they just couldn't leave because they were getting bombarded so much. And after having read that, he told me, he said, I went there, and he said the first day, he said, I was in one of those holes for 20 days. And he told him, he said, this past July the 4th, he said, Joby, he said, 50 years ago today, I was storming New Guinea Beach. The people that we have here in Newport, Wardell Pennington, just found out he's, how old, 92 yesterday? Yesterday, 65 sorties as a machine gunner on a slow B-25 bomber. People like that. Stu Stewart, the guy that used to run this country club a long time ago, he was in Midway. I'm so admire these people. The James Eddie Simmons, the Charles Rays that you've already honored, Colonel Broadaways. But all these unsung people that I look at and see, the Sarge Gay, you're not from Newport, but nonetheless, the ones that really truly gave their heart and soul to our country. And, when I look at that, You know, to me, those are the big hitters. Those are the ones that really deserve the honor. And then probably the other thing are the educators. This is about education. The ones that have given their life in true education to this country, because it's really made who we are and what we have today. The Burtons, I know them personally. My mother, who I'd be amiss if I didn't say she was an educator 40 years. And I say our father and our mother, who upheld those same values that I saw in the founding fathers. So, to me, educators and people that's truly given their life. Colonel Jones, I've always admired you. I don't know where you still here. He left. That's just like him. They don't want any credit, or they don't want any glory. Did you see that when he took the honor? He just meekly walked away. Brilliant man. And that's how all these people. I could go on and on about the people in this room. How many military people are served in the military are in this room? Raise your hand. How many educators? Raise your hand. Give them a hand. And I was mentioning our parents, not my parents, but our parents, and the values that they had. And, our parents were salt of the earth, common people, but good people. And I still remember, and it's funny, they probably didn't hear this as much because I was the uh-oh child. You can see the difference in our ages. My sister reminded me all the time. But nonetheless, my daddy, I called him Bear. But what he told me all the time, there was two sayings he said. One was, it's between your ears, and the other one's pin your ears back. Did y'all hear that very much? See, I needed to hear it. And most of the time it was when you were in some type of adversity. But what I've come to realize, what he was talking about more than anything, between your ears, it's about your attitude. It's how you look at something. There's always things to be down about. There's always things to be discouraged about, but it's your attitude. That's what I see in these military people and in the educators and in overcoming adversity. And that served me well, because that's really what we all face in life, because it's not all good all the time. The other was pin your ears back, which in my profession is not a good thing, because I've had my most prominent part of my facial anatomy, my nose, nearly bitten off and a tooth kicked out from something that pinned their ears back. Actually, they didn't, and I'm still fooled by the poker players, be it a person or an animal, the ones that don't look like they're harmful, and then they are. I'm tricked easily by those. But anyway, the other one was it's just determination and perseverance, And what I heard with Colonel Jones, what I heard with Colonel Broadway, and all these military people, it's a point that you don't give up. You just keep trying. And so, and then these guys, they have been mentors to me to see these examples that I've heard in their lives. I get emotional when I talk about that. But irregardless, I hope that explains a little bit why I said what I did about what Colton Wong said. But the next statement after that, what he said was, even though I understand and I realize that, I'm going to enjoy the day. And so it's been a joy for this, to the people that, whoever you are, that made this possible. Thank you for that. And I agree that Steve ought to be one. I agree that Ronnie and Mary ought to be one too. There's another person that was in my class that has served our country, just unbelievable. His name is Danny Cash. But I would just, there's so many people that and I don't want to mention them, because Pete Long, a colonel, giving his life to this country. I could just go on and on and on. But that's where my heart is. But again, I thank you for this honor, and it's nice to be here, and I am going to enjoy the night with my family.
Good evening. I'm Earl Walton.
Some of you know who I am. I'm here to present A.J. Burton into this Hall of Fame. I was A.J.'s principal 30 years ago at the junior high school. It was my first principal's job, right out of the classroom, and I was 30-ish when Mr. Mullins hired me for that job. And I went into a faculty that was pretty interesting, and quite a few of them are here tonight. I cannot tell you how blessed I was to be able to be selected for that principal's job in 1981 and to be able to work with the group that I was able to work with. And I'll tell you more about that later. When I got the call from A.J., 30 years, you heard me say that, didn't you? 30 years ago. When I got the call from A.J., the first thing I said is, I bet you every other administrator he ever worked with is gone now. and I asked him that, and he said, no, there's a couple more around. But can you imagine how I felt when I got that call? Now, clearly we connected 30 years ago, or I wouldn't have gotten that call. But that's a long time ago, and he's been with a lot of people since then, before and since. So I'll just leave it at this. Quite a privilege and an honor to be back in Newport. We loved Newport the time we were here. It wasn't long, but it was intense. And my daughter is still best friends with Jennifer Block, Jim and Ann Block's daughter. They lived across the street from us. My wife Donna is still good friends with Ann and several other people. As a matter of fact, she's not in here tonight because she's in Newport with friends while I'm here with you all. But it's really a privilege to be here, and AJ, I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. We all know that those of us who are honest and truthful about it know that human condition is very complex and confounding. We're flawed and we're broken. We have an instinct to be self-centered and self-absorbed and to take care of ourselves first. Once in a while, the rest of us are privileged to come across a person who somehow God has gifted with the ability to recognize that early and to demonstrate before us a level of character and attitude that is very uncommon. I saw that in Mr. Burton pretty quickly when I was here. I don't need to tell y'all what a gentle man he is, a peaceful man he is. He lives a life like the Scripture tells us to as much as possible within you live at peace with all men around you, and to take care of your responsibilities and to do the things you need. If you had seen him in a classroom, he was remarkable. He was so kind, so caring, so patient with all of his students. And he also understood some research that he might not have known existed then, and I didn't either, but that most of the face-to-face communication we do is nonverbal. About 93% of the communication face-to-face is body language and tone of voice. Mr. Burton understood that. It's not the words. It's the way you treat people, your attitude, and the way you listen to people, and your genuineness when you deal with people and speak to people and listen to them. And that's what I saw Mr. Burton do with children. That's what I saw Mr. Burton do with all the adults around him, the staff. They will tell you that. That's what he did with a first-year principal that he knew was learning on the job every day and didn't have much of a clue. But he treated me that way. He listened to me when I talked to him, and we respected one another because of that. And for all you junior high guys, Mr. Burton and Miss Burton and the rest of you guys back there, do you remember the little number 1 that Plato Barnett made for me at the end of the first year, and that Wilma Tyner and Helen Harris presented to me on y'all's behalf at the last faculty meeting? It's in a prominent location in my house. It's a little number one about that size. First year. I could name every one of the people that taught in that building when I was there, Mr. Burton. I can tell you the rooms they were in. So that's the kind of impression that it made on my life. And I will say that Mr. Burton in particular, because of his being an uncommon man that leads by example, is precisely the right kind of person that should be honored in any venue. He's committed to his family. He's committed to his community. He's committed to the students and the parents of those students that he saw each day in all those years that he worked. He went about his work quietly, a gentleman that I am so pleased this community and this Hall of Fame has chosen to honor and recognize, because he's the kind of man that I want to be like and want to emulate. Mr. A.J. Burton.
Thank you, Mr. Walton, for that introduction. We had a great faculty in junior high, and I really appreciate working, teaching the kids. I had a great bunch of kids, and I taught a special class that I enjoyed teaching, and the kids enjoyed it. At least that's what they say. But I wanted to tell you that I am greatly honored and privileged for this honor. And I'd like to tell you about the class that I mentioned, the special class that I mentioned. It's called, we named it Scientific Methods. It's a 8th grade honors chemistry class. And chemistry was the primary area of study throughout the year for scientific methods students. This class started with 2 classes, and within a few years had increased to 4 classes with an average of 20 to 25 students in each class. We used a chapter outline from the high school chemistry textbook. Basic material was taught. However, in many instances, our classes went far beyond basic. Students also performed many hands-on types of experiments. This allowed the student to develop scientific concepts that are necessary in learning and appreciating chemistry. Individual or group experiments were not done until students learned the name and use of all equipment. Chemical elements, we did about 50, and how to balance chemical formulas, how to balance chemical equations. A great deal of time was required to teach this material. However, this knowledge helped students understand and almost visualize the exchange of atoms and molecules in a chemical reaction during our experiments. Give you an example of one of the things we did that sort of got the attention of one of my students in a big way. In our study of elements, I did a demonstration to show the chemical activity of lithium, sodium, and potassium. These are alkali metals which are very chemically active in water. I had 3 beakers, fill each one with water, and in the first beaker I placed lithium, It fizzed and dissolved. In the second beaker I placed sodium. It skipped around on top of the water, and it dissolved. Now these are alkali earth metals. They are metal, but they are less dense than water. And in the third beaker, I placed potassium. And all of a sudden, time I put that in there, it burst into flames. One of my students ran from the back of the room and looked at that. And by that time, Mr. Walton had shown up in the door. He said, "He burned a hole in the floor, Mr. Walton. He burned a hole in the floor." Even Earl had to laugh at that. You know, I see that student occasionally now, and he's made a fine young man, and we laugh about that every time I see him. The second half of the year, I taught organic chemistry. Students were required to learn many organic compounds, the structural formula and their use. And during our discussion of different types of alcohols, which was an organic compound, students always enjoyed doing the fermentation of fruit. Now they, at first they didn't realize why they had to make alcohol, but it's a connection between fermentation of fruit and making the alcohol with what we were talking about. We were talking about several alcohols: methyl, ethyl, propyl, isopropyl. We were talking about all the alcohols. So we had to make one. And they loved it. My room smelled like a brewery, though. But they loved it. They would make this alcohol and let it ferment for about 3 or 4 weeks, and then we would distill it. We would separate the alcohol from the water by distillation. And this is called fractional distillation. And then after we did that, we would pour a small amount of it out on the lab table. And I would light it. The students would reply, "It's not burning," but it burned with an invisible flame. So I'd hold an absentee step over it, it would catch fire and burn. And almost every time they would comment that this would make an excellent fuel source. And now we have it in gasoline, don't we? Gasohol. I truly enjoy teaching science and scientific methods, and I've taught biology and chemistry and general science and physical science, all the sciences just about over the years, over 35 years, and I truly enjoyed this class because it's a great bunch of kids. They were enthusiastic. Let me, I can do it, that attitude. So scientific methods motivated, stimulated, developed our young 8th grade students to a higher level of understanding. And for that, the pleasure was mine. Thank you.
I forgot one thing. Better than any testimony I could give, Lindsey Brown said he was her favorite and best teacher of all times.
Mr. Walton, I certainly appreciate you talking about somebody's best teacher of all time, because that's my whole speech. I'm here to talk about my greatest teacher of all time. The one lady that I love as much as I love my own mother. She's a wonderful person. I want to talk about Miss Ollie Burton. She always knew what she wanted to do in life. She always knew where she was supposed to be in her life. She grew up in a small town just east of Newport called Blackville. It was named after Mr. Pickens Black. It was about 350 people. It was a black town. That's where black people lived. And Miss Burton knew where she was supposed to be. She was there. She went to school there early on,
And then when it came time to go to high school, she goes to W.F. Branch, graduates 1956. She was there because that's where she was supposed to be. After high school, she goes to Arkansas A&M, one of the few places that they allowed black students to go to college in the state of Arkansas. She went there because that's where she was supposed to be. She decided to come home. She was going to be a school teacher, wanted to come home to Blackville, Arkansas to be a school teacher. And she did for 7 years. She taught elementary school, 7th grade social studies, because that's where she was supposed to be. And then something changed. Something changed that was enormous in our country. Joe David, I appreciate you talking about. I think you talk about courage. You talk about those people who had courage, our soldiers who had courage, and our educators who had courage. And I think Miss Burton had a lot of courage. Webster's dictionary defines courage as the ability to do something that you know is difficult or dangerous. Mental or moral strength to venture, persevere, and withstand danger, fear, or difficulty. Now, what in the world does that have to do with Miss Burton? In 1967, when I walked into my 6th grade classroom at Castleberry Elementary School, I was with 24 other white students, and we walked into the class, and I wasn't exactly sure how different that lady was that was standing outside our door, but I knew she was different. I knew she was different. She was sweet, she was kind, and she was encouraging, and I had no idea just how different this lady was. She was special. She was real special. She had all the tools to be a great school teacher, and I know you school teachers here tonight, you're challenging and you're engaging and you have great knowledge, you're creative, you motivate, you're professional, you're organized. She had all that just like you do. But she had something that's a little bit different than any other teacher. She was warm, she was compassionate, she was loving, she was caring. She loved us, and we knew it. And we loved her back. When you succeeded in her class, she praised you. When you didn't succeed, when you failed, she encouraged you to do better. Anytime you had a minor fall, she was always there to lift you up with a major lift. I don't remember much about 6th grade geography, Miss Burton. I really don't. I don't remember much about 6th grade science, and I don't remember about 6th grade math, and I really don't remember anything about the educational part. But I do remember Miss Burton. I remember how kind she was. I remember how I felt when I was in her classroom. She made me feel good. She made me feel important. She made everybody in our class feel important, all the kids. And there were thousands of us that she made feel good over her career. And it wasn't necessarily what she did. It was simply who she was and who she is today. She's a devout Christian, a wonderful mother and grandmother, a devoted wife to Mr. A.J. for well over 50 years, a community volunteer, a good citizen, a very good, kind, and loving person was Miss Burton. Here's what's so important. In 1967, and we've heard talk about Mr. Mullins here tonight, Patty's dad, superintendent of schools. What a great man. What courage he had to handpick the first black teacher to teach in the Newport school system. He handpicked Miss Ollie Burton. That's a pretty big honor, pretty big shoes to fill. And I can only imagine how she felt when she got to Castleberry School. This is 1967. This is 3 years before we integrated. Here's a black lady coming into a white school, and it was all white. She may tell you how she felt when she gets up here in a little bit, but she was there because she was supposed to be, and she stood there strong. Mr. and Miss Burton raised 3 boys and 3 fine young men, Tony and Kelly, Tony and Vincent and Kelly. And I was talking with Tony the other day, and I said, Tony, tell me some of the memories you have, some of the early memories about being one of Miss Burton's kids. I'm really interested to know, what's one of the memories that you have? And he thought, and he said, David, he said, Mama always made the 4 of us mind. And I said, 4? There were only 3 kids. And he very calmly said, "She made Daddy mine too." She taught school for 36 years. She retired in 1996. After retirement, someone asked her would she come down for a few weeks and volunteer to work at the Willa Black Daycare Center. They just needed her for a few weeks in 1996. And she worked there, volunteered there for the next 15 years. Incredible. She was there because she was supposed to be. I wish every student could have the opportunity to have a teacher like Miss Burton. Man, was she special. She's like Newport Greyhounds at their finest. Branch High School graduate, a pirate, and a Greyhound. What an honor. She's such a beautiful and a wonderful and caring human being. I love her with all my heart, and she's so deserving of the award that we give her tonight. It is with great honor and pleasure for me to introduce and to help induct her into the Newport Alumni Hall of Fame, a place where she is supposed to be. Miss Ollie Burton.
My goodness, I don't have anything to say. David has said it all. And David, I tell you how I felt that September morning outside of my door, waiting, nervous, waiting for a group of kids that I had never met. But I tell you what, that was a great year. And David, I can't believe you did that much research on me. Hey, if you'd have studied a little while longer, you'd have learned something else about me, but I'm not going to tell it. Since they were all good things, I'm not going to let you know about my temper tantrums, about my keeping my better half in order, along with his boys, by his first wife. I tell you, it was a job, and it still is. And one of the things, David, you did tonight that I appreciate so much, this is the first time all three of those Burton men in my household stood up for me. Thank you very much. All right. And a special thank you to Julie Allen and all those who have made tonight special for all the inductees. We deeply appreciate your hard work. I'm speaking for all of them. We deeply appreciate your hard work because we wouldn't be here if it weren't for you. And the year 1967 was a special year. This was the year I made 25 plus amazing new friends who became old friends. And for this reason, I share tonight's honor with them. First, our beloved and belated Superintendent, Mr. John W. Mullins, who was superintendent of Newport schools in 1967. It was early March when Mr. Mullins told me I would teach sixth grade at Castleberry Elementary School, known as the Donut School. Mr. Mullins assured me that everything would be all right. He told me, Ollie, I don't anticipate a problem, and neither should you. And if a problem should arise, I want you to know I have the ability and I will take care of it. Over the summer, I met Mary Nance, and I heard tonight, and Mary Nance, who was principal at Castleberry School. We know, many of you might know her as Mary Stikes. And she echoed Mr. Mullins' words. And she said, if any incident should arise and you feel uncomfortable handling that situation and you want to send that student to me, feel free to do so. Then she added, I will handle it for you, but believe me, I never sent a child to the office for Mrs. Nance to discipline, in part because there were two big boys who have in that class, big for their age, more mature in their thoughts and actions, and in many more mature in their thoughts and action, more than any other 12-year-olds. These boys spoke up whenever they thought their peers were getting out of hand. These boys, now handsome, good-looking young men, were David Black and Greg Hubbard. Thank you. Thank you, David. Thank you very much, Greg. I owe you guys more thanks than I can ever express. Marie Evans and Theda Smith were the other two sixth grade teachers. They welcomed me with open arms. Theda was an excellent teacher. She loved her students, and they loved her in return. She loved to laugh. She enjoyed telling me funny stories about her daughter Mary, who was living in Florida. And we giggle a lot about the action and the things that Mary got into while she was in Florida. Theda said to me often, Ollie, if you ever need anything now, you can call me. I'm just a door away. My thoughts were, hey, Theda, I don't think I'll ever need you. I have well-behaved students. And besides, I have two very good helpers. Of course, you know, those were my David Block and my Greg Hubbard. One day, I did need Theda's help. Someone had put a rubber snake on my desk under a stack of test papers. As I was picking up the test paper, talking at the same time, telling the kids the good job that they had done and the not so good job that they had done, and I expected more, I looked down and there was the green snake. I gave out a loud scream and at the same time shouted, who did it? Tell me, who did this? Tell me now. Of course, here runs, Theda rushes into my room. First she had to calm me, and then she spent the other 5 or 10 minutes getting the class in order. And I thought, oh, Theda, thanks a bunch. And then I thought, and we both had a big laugh afterwards. And then I thought, where in the world was that David Block and that and that Greg Hubbard on a day when I needed them the most? Where they were, I promise you, I'll never know. Johnny Powers was the 6th grade teacher's aide. Very friendly lady from day one. Ran many errands for me, ran the test papers off, helped me fix my bulletin board, and on many, many days, she'd stop by my room and say, hey, there's coffee and cookies in the prep room. I think you deserve a break. I think you deserve a snack. Come on, let's go. Johnny has remained a dear, cherished friend. Marty Michaels, and Lois Black. These were the room mothers in my classroom. They prepared the parties, the snacks, served them, brought it out, all out, and I didn't have to do anything. Tough parents always questioned me to see if their sons were doing their very best. I deeply appreciated them, and we became friends over the years. The individuals who I have spoke of tonight are only a few out of many. I truly believe they deserve the honor that I am accepting tonight, and for this reason, I accept it in their honor, and I deeply appreciate your kindness. Thank you very much.
Now that we have all the Smith family together here, I want to share a little story right quick. One day between Thanksgiving and New Year's in 1968, that's the year we beat Batesville 46-0. I was at Palmer's Gulf Station getting gas. Steve, Ronnie, Mary, Joe David. I'm getting gas, 28 cents a gallon, y'all remember. And I'm standing there, and I come in, and I start to pay my bill, and Mr. Ransom Smith comes up, and he said, "John, you made one of the finest plays I've ever seen an offensive lineman make." And I said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "As a trap block, and you trapped the right defensive tackle. You knocked him down. Kearney went through the 3-hole, broke free, went down through, went about 40 yards, and you blocked the safety down in the end zone." And I said, "Mr. Ransom, I'm number 64. He said, "I know what number you are." I said, "I just want to make sure. I want to make sure it was me you were looking at." And he said, "I remember you, boy. That was a great play." Mr. Ransom was in one of the local philanthropic clubs here, civic clubs, and he would always, whenever I'd speak at that club, he'd always bring that story up. And I always thought, I've got one fan in the whole wide world, and that's Mr. Ransom Smith, and I wanted to share that with the Smith family. You've got an orange piece of paper in front of you there, and it highlights some of the things that the Charitable Foundation has been able to do this year because of what you do, and that is donate a little bit of money. And we want to pay special homage to some of the people who've done so much: Arkansas Steel, Harris Hospital, Holden Connor Realty, and Conmac Investments, the banks, Joe Miles, David Hare, Farmers Electric, Walmart, the J.B. Jackson family, Mickey Doyle, Mobley Construction, and a classmate of mine, James Eddie Simmons. There are a lot of others here who give too. These are just some of the bigger donors, and we want to thank them for that. If you can, before you leave, honor the Charitable Foundation by making a check. And if you don't have it with you tonight, please mail a check in. Next year, we'll have more honorees who will become part of a special family of the Greyhound family by being inducted into the Alumni Hall of Fame. It's a great night. We appreciate you being here. It's special for all of us. Greyhounds, I promise you, I've traveled to 33 countries in my life, and Newport, Arkansas is the center of the universe. I got to believe that. I've got to believe that. Thank you so much for being here, and I'm going to ask that all of you who were honored tonight, please stay, have your pictures taken. Thank you. Drive carefully. God bless you. Go Greyhounds.